this is you have to guys. You have to get in the habit of putting it back into a solid form. So when you wedge a piece of clay, I have 2 tables set up in the other room that have the canvas on the ground. You want to take both your hands. You're working with the palm of your hand, and we're going to gently rock. And you want to wedge the clay back together into a solid mass. That's going to help the clay stay damp so it doesn't dry out. Okay? Remember, there's 2 different types of clay. It doesn't matter. Once we fire it, it'll all be the same shade of white. Okay? It's just a little bit, the orders sometimes come in a little bit different. After you get it back into a solid form like this, remember you can gently tap your ball into shape. So there we go. So as we start, everybody should have their sketch. Remember, if you haven't yet, you need to, in your notes, also include the measurements. It needs to be 3 inches wide on the bottom. It could be any shape you want, depending on your sketch. And then as you build the coils, it's going to be between 6 and 9 inches tall, so roughly about this tall. Okay. So after you figure out what you are going to do, and I'm going to be borrowing your tools for the demo, you need to either use the slab rollers in the other room, or you can make a slab with using your hands. Remember, we want it to be the same thickness of your index finger or your thumb. It shouldn't be any thicker or thinner. Okay? If you have a special shape, you want to make sure that you can use a piece of paper even if you want to create a template. I'm going to do a basic shape that has a round edge to show you how it might curve, and then I'm going to do a sharp edge for those of you that might have a triangle. Okay, so this is the shape of my base. Remember, yours is going to be a little bit larger. I want it to be, you guys can see the thickness. That's perfect. So once you get your base made, you're going to start making your coils. I recommend after you've gotten your clay wedged back together, I think it's helpful to have a bag and roll a bunch of coils and then keep it in your bag, so as you're going, you keep the coils in the bag so they don't dry out, but it's easier for you to build. And making sure you're getting them there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then when you do coils, this is the most important part, and sometimes it takes people a little while to get it. The biggest mistake I've noticed throughout the years is that people use their fingers like this, and then it gets real lumpy, and you have a hard time getting control back over your coil. So you want to try to always remember, use the flat part of your hand. If you push too hard, it's also going to flatten out and make it like this shape as well. So all you have to do to fix that is turn it up on its side, gently rock. Don't even have to push. Gently rock back and forth and see how it's starting to make my coil get back into that shape. So what I want to do is just like what I always use the analogy of driving a car. If you push too hard, your coil is going to become flat. If you move too fast like this, you're also using the warmth of your hand and the air to make your coil dry out and start to get cracks. That is why this is an excellent setup right here. She's got all of her tools, banding wheel, a little bit of water. Notice how I use that sponge, dampen my fingers, not a lot. But I'm gonna use that water to help keep my coil smooth. And I want to try, everybody, you can practice too. You're going to make what I call like a double swan. Use your hands, and then you're pulling out, like maybe, I guess, swimming. Anybody swims. Here's a good example. When I move too fast and it starts to break, don't worry about it. You can even cut that off and re-wedge that. We want our coils to be roughly the size of your thumb or index finger. I guess everybody has different size hands. We're trying to make it even, so if you notice I'm going kind of back and forth. For the most part, it's pretty much smooth, and I'm kind of going back and forth, making sure it's even. That's a perfect size for a coil. So like finger or thumb, okay? So once I get my coils made, like I said, you can do one at a time, it's up to you. Then you're gonna go back to your area, and you're gonna start to build. You wanna scratch and attach. So you're gonna put that slip glue down, and then you're gonna start to build the coils. I also need to scratch on the bottom of mine, a little bit of slip, and I'm going to start adding it to my shape. So remember right here where I have that sharp edge, I can just bend my coil